Okay, everybody, welcome to another episode of Black Coffee here. I'm your host, John Brown, and today we're with Shawn Ray, legendary bodybuilder, professional bodybuilder, longtime friend of mine, world renowned bodybuilder. Shawn had a very illustrious career. I think he won the Arnold Classic in 1991.
Yeah.
And he competed Mr. Olympia contest. I think, in my opinion, he got robbed a couple of times, but came in second place. How many times did you come in second place?
Twice.
Twice. So,
Yeah.
so he's a very famous bodybuilder. World, like I said, world renowned. Everyone knows him from here to the other side of the earth. So we're happy and welcome to the show, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who love to hear from you and find out more about yourself.
Yeah, man. It's crazy because I remember hearing people talk about legends of bodybuilding. I think of the ageless Albert Beckles or the Black Prince, Robbie Robinson, Serge Nubret. Was Serge Nubret's nickname the Panther?
The
Was
the
that his
Black
nickname?
Panther, I think. Yeah.
Black Panther. Or the myth, Sergio Oliva. Like, when I thought of legendary bodybuilders, I thought about people that were way ahead of my
Mm-hmm.
time. And a little known fact, you only got me by like 10 years. So I don't look at you in the same way as I look at those guys. Like, they seem so much older. And they were on the scene before your arrival, right? So
Oh,
they
yeah.
were they were doing it before you even got there.
Oh,
So when I
yeah.
think of a legend, I think of that. But then when I start thinking about what were those legends up against, and I measure it up against the caliber of guys I was up against in the 90s,
Mm-hmm.
the depth of field
Was
when
much
they were
different.
doing what they were doing, it was a lot different. There was fewer guys with extreme talent.
Yes.
But they stood out amongst the most because they were either superior genetically,
Mm-hmm.
better from the ground up because of their work ethic, but there were fewer of them. My era, which is why the word legend kind of takes on a new meaning. Most of the guys in the 90s, I was up against a bunch of Hall of Fame bodybuilders.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Lee Haney, Dorian Yates, Vince Taylor, Lee Labrada, Rich Gaspari, Kevin Levrone, Flex Wheeler. Those are Hall of Fame bodybuilders. But when I
Yes.
look at Surge, I look at the myths.
There's only like three good
Sergio.
bodybuilders.
Yeah, there wasn't very many. I remember one year Arnold won the Olympia with nobody in it. So to be called a legend of bodybuilding, it makes me feel good. One, I'm feeling the distance from the stage. It's been 23 years since I was on a bodybuilding stage as a competitor
Wow.
in 2001. And at 58 years old, I used to think that was old when I was 30. And it seems like 30 was 28 years ago.
Yes.
I mean, and being 23 years removed from the stage, in 5 more years, I'm ageless Albert Beckles. I turned into Serge Nubret. I turned into all the guys I thought were legends that were older. I'm now inching into that age.
But you know what it
category.
reminds me of? I talked
Huh.
to most of the audience won't know this name, but uh, when was Ali the champion? In the 70s, early 60s,
Yeah,
60s, 70s. And I
when he
talked to
beats
Ken
when he
Norton.
was,
Most people won't know Ken
yeah,
Norton, but Ken Norton was also a great boxer. And Ken Norton told me back then when he was boxing, the heavyweight championship was the top 10 guys could knock you out. You had Ali,
yeah.
Ernie Shavers, uh, Joe Frazier.
Ron Lyle, yeah,
Uh, you had what's the guy's name? Larry Holmes. There were so many top 10 heavyweight boxers. He said any
yeah,
given night you could lose your title because the field
yeah.
was so intense. It's not like that now, but there was at least 10 guys deep that could win the championship at any given night.
Yeah, and that's the era I came up in.
Yeah.
That's the era I came up in bodybuilding. It's like that's the equivalent.
Mm-hmm.
But that was boxing in the 70s, early 80s. It's not the same now.
Larry Holmes. Oh, so many guys. in that heavyweight division. So very similar to what you said. So what are you doing now? What are you doing these days?
So in that 23-year absence from actually sleeping, and
Mm-hmm.
training for 13 years of my life, every year it was on my birthday. I didn't have a birthday for 13 years. It was always an Olympia celebration.
Oh.
Um, of course, after moving out into retirement, um, getting married, then having two daughters, and then only 8 years ago I found out I have a third daughter. I inherited three grandchildren. My family has expanded
Oh,
in the
fantastic.
past 8 years. Yeah, in the past 8 years with an older daughter and grandchildren. Um, I've been constantly giving back. I mean, listen, I know bodybuilding inside and out.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I was induced into becoming a promoter because I complained to the promoter of the Ironman Championships, and that was John Balick, the owner of Ironman magazine.
Mm-hmm.
John Balick. He actually started off as a bodybuilder, became a photographer, became an editor.
Mm-hmm.
He put on the first Ironman in 1990, and in 2005, after I had my daughter Asia, I remember I was complaining to him at a bodybuilding show. He turned the Ironman into an expo, and I was complaining. I said, "How is it that you can expand your bodybuilding weekend to include this huge expo, and you're still giving away $10,000 in 2005
Mm.
that you gave me in 1990?"
Mm.
Well, it costs money to run the expo. I said, "Yeah, but you're making more money because more people are
Wow.
coming in.
Wow.
You have all the sponsor booths.
Mm-hmm.
You're making a shit ton more money, but you're still giving the bodybuilder, who's the main event, the same money." And by the time we were done, he challenged me to put on my own show. He says, if you think it's easy, go ahead and you try it.
Mm-hmm.
So 1 year later, I created the Shawn Ray Colorado Pro Classic,
Mm.
and I gave away $70,000 at Pro Bodybuilding and Pro Figure. I gave my winner $25,000. I gave my second place guy $15,000. My third place guy got $10,000. I had a $10,000 Best Poser Award,
Mm-hmm.
and I gave away a Hummer to a fan that came to the show that won it on a raffle. And I held my show, John, in the Denver, Colorado Convention
Oh,
Center
wow.
that seated 5,000 people.
How many showed up?
So we probably had about 1,500, but it wasn't held in a high school.
Right.
It wasn't in a small little venue. It was the convention center.
Right.
And it was a performing arts. I went big, and then when I told him what I did, gave away 70,000. He said, "Congratulations! Try doing it again. Try doing it."
Oh, get out of here.
The following year, I bumped the prize money up to $72,000. I gave away a Harley Davidson motorcycle, a chopper, and the winner of that show was Kai Green. The winner the first year was Phil Heath.
Oh, wow.
So I felt extremely proud of myself because I took that on as a challenge, and then I fell in love with the art of production, which is why my business is called Shawn Ray Productions. And from that challenge, I went on to promote the Shawn Ray Classic over in Baltimore for 4 years, in Maryland, and now I'm going on my 7th year, 6 hours across the Pacific Ocean in Hawaii. So my motivation came out of a challenge, kind of like being a smaller bodybuilder, where people said, "Well, yeah, you won the Mr. Orange County. Go try to win the Mr. California."
What was
Won the
your measurements on stage at your best weight, best condition?
Yeah, 1994. When I got second place, and you thought I should have trained harder. You told me, you said I would have won if I trained harder, but I think 94 at 207 pounds, I think that was my best condition, my best package. I felt I was at my most complete. The most thing that I'm most proud about is that I was challenged into becoming a bodybuilding promoter after my retirement, but physique-wise, I was in the throes of it, man. I mean, Dorian Yates had won the 92 and 93 Olympia. Flex Wheeler had just gotten a car accident, so he wasn't going to be there, but I was training as if he was. I knew Kevin Levrone was going to be there. And, I was in 4th place in 1992. I climbed to 3rd place in 1993. And in 1994, I went to Atlanta, Georgia, thinking I was going to win it. Now, mind you, that was the first year they brought back the Masters Olympia.
Ah.
And that's where Robbie Robinson beat Lou Ferrigno. And I was going after Dorian Yates, and I got really, really close. A month out, Dorian Yates tore his bicep, came in heavy, came in off, and I was right where I needed to be. I did my Jennifer Holliday routine that I used in 1987. I brought the audience to their feet, and I thought I had enough momentum. And right at the 11th hour, they gave it to the defending champion. And, of course, Dorian Yates went on to win 3 more after that.
So I know, but explain to the audience how you got started in bodybuilding.
Yeah. I mean, I was an injured football player. I hurt my knee in practice, getting ready for a playoff game. So in the playoffs, you either win or you lose and go home. Our season was in the balance. And on the Wednesday before the Friday game, mind you, I was the punter, the kick returner, the punt returner, the tailback, and I was the defensive halfback. So I never left the field. I never left the game. And in practice, I was practicing my punts. I was on the side of the field putting my punts, trying to get them inside the 5-yard line. But at the same time, the kick return team was practicing the kickoff return. This is something I was a 3-year starter from sophomore to senior. It's my senior year. It wasn't something I felt was very important, but my coach was on one. And he said, if I don't get in there and practice the kick return, then I'm not going to return the kicks in the game. So I squeezed off one final punt, ran back there to receive the kickoff. The first time I got the kickoff, I caught it. I ran for 10 yards. They blew the whistles. It's touch, right? We got a playoff game. We're just touching each other. We have our sophomores up with our seniors because we're in the playoffs. The second kick return, I catch the ball. I run about 10 yards. I break to the left. One of our seniors hits one of our sophomores. Our sophomore falls down and rolls into my knee. Strained my knee enough to where our football medic put me in a cast that day that came up to my hip. I was on crutches. I watched our playoff game. They thought if we get past this round, I could play the next week. They had the cast on me for a week. We lost the game, and now that's the end of my football career. That was it. It was over.
Is that when I saw you in the gym?
Yeah. Well, I went home, and 2 days later, me and my brother cut the cast off my leg. That's when I went in the gym, and I was training with your roommate, Eric, and you were coming back from Europe, I think, in '83 from the Universe, I think it was. I'm not sure. But that's when Eric had told you about me, and we started going to work, and I rehabbed my knee, and next thing you know, I was competing.
Well, I remember you in the gym staring at me, and I'm always wondering, who's this guy keeps staring at me, right? I thought, let me go over and talk to this guy. So I went over and introduced myself. I said, what do? You're a bodybuilder? He goes, no, I'm a football player. I said, oh, you want to bodybuild? He said, I don't know. I'm like, from what I'm seeing, the way you look, you should bodybuild. And then next thing I know, we started training together, putting you through workouts and posing routines and so forth and so forth. And the rest took care of itself. You were unstoppable.
Yeah, well, you were talking about Doyle Washington, who I think won the Mr. America. You were talking about Victor Richards. You were dropping some names, and these guys looked like men to me. I was a kid, but they weren't that far away from me in age. And I had to believe that physical development was possible because they're not too much older than I was. But I think I was afraid because of your intimidating presence. You wore these spandex pants that you made custom. You had the striped singlet on, and you had veins on your arms. You were very imposing. You were scary looking to me. You didn't look like somebody that I thought was attainable. You were like a cartoon character.
Yeah.
And you don't know it because your demeanor was who you were, but you had a very imposing demeanor that was like, shit or get out of the way. Like you were like a bulldozer in the gym. It was very focused. It was very intense. The sweat, the hair, the swagger. You were like a pit bull.
Oh God.
So like you can go to the dog farm and see Lassie and a poodle and little dogs, and then over there you had the pit bulls that you want to look at from a distance.
Yeah.
But you came over and you were in the space, and it was intimidating to be in there. So training with you wasn't something I looked forward to, because I felt like I'm going to get chewed out, I'm going to get my ass kicked, I'm going to get embarrassed, and I'm going to get humiliated. And true to form, it was happening, and it kept happening, and it kept happening. But for some reason, I just didn't. I didn't feel like I could quit, because you would humiliate me more. Every time I quit, you humiliated me, and I had to come back for redemption until it got to a point where I think I wasn't going to throw up, I wasn't going to quit, and I think that's where I got your respect.
And I remember a couple of times I had to come to your house and knock on your window.
Yeah, but that was no. You were like the fucking boogeyman.
I'm
you
like,
were like
where's
the boogeyman
Shawn? Where you at? I went to the back door of your house,
I would
knocking
hide.
on the windows. I know you're in there.
I would hide because, listen, you didn't realize it, but you wouldn't let me quit. And when I tried to quit, well, the thing is, I didn't understand why you wouldn't let me quit and just leave me alone. But in my quiet time, I would feel like a loser if I quit. So I would get out of the bed, I would go to the gym, even if I just had to go through the motions, even if I was going to quit, because you made me sit down and watch you. You wouldn't let me just leave. Sometimes you tell me to leave. Other times you tell me to watch. And if that's never happened to someone, it's almost a form of discipline from a parent that you're going to eat all the food on your plate and you're not going to get up until you do. And I would watch my mom leave the room, and I'd fall asleep with my food in front of me. I didn't like to eat the green peas. I didn't like the vegetables. I didn't like the fish. I didn't like the liver. And I didn't like the chitlins. And I would literally be the last one sitting at the table. I'd be at the last one sitting at the table, and I couldn't leave. You wouldn't let me leave. You wouldn't let me quit. And I think that's probably what took me to the next level.
So it's the same thing what I did with my kids, actually, you know. When they was eating, I would stand at the table watching me, wouldn't let them quit. Let's go. All in. Let's get it. Same concept. I know that Osiris, Equanimous, and Amon-Ra is going to be listening to this thinking, wow, this is the same thing my dad did to me. But you want to be the champ. Look, I told you, I don't know if you remember, I said, we got to train to destroy guys. When I train to compete, I want you to walk on stage, and if they compare you, so let me explain to the audience. In bodybuilding, you walk out on stage as a group of men, and then each person has a number on their shorts, number 1 through 20, let's say. And they'll say, let me have number 1, 5, and 6 in the center of the stage. Those are the best guys, apparently. And then they work their ways backwards. So I said to Shawn, your first contest, if they compare you, it's an insult. You should be so much better, destroy everyone, no competition, that when you walk on stage, okay, this guy's first, no need to compare him. If they do compare you just for the show of the show, because they have to do it, but was it the Orange County? It was your first show?
Yeah, it was the Orange Coast right here in Newport Harbor High School.
Teenage Orange Coast.
Yeah.
And you as I remember, there was no competition. It was like obvious when you walked on stage, he's first place, let's find second. Mm-hmm. I don't know how you felt.
Well, those nuggets carry over into other aspects of life, right? Because I would believe I can't lose in a lot of things. I mean, it carried over into areas that what I thought was impossible, I actually thought I can do it. I went to a Tony Braxton concert one time here in Anaheim at the Pond with a friend of mine who was another bodybuilder from Las Vegas. And our seats were, I'm not kidding, the second row from the top of the arena.
Wow.
And while we're watching, the group Mint Condition was the opening act. While we're watching, I said, let's see if we can get backstage and meet Tony Braxton. And he thought, no, it's too much security. And I said, let's go. Because this took me back to where in 1984 at the Prince concert here in Long Beach.
You got to tell that story.
we went in there. We went in there and got back.
No, you got to tell that story from the beginning. You got to tell that.
I will. Let me finish the Tony Braxton one. So she hasn't come on yet, but I wanted to get backstage. And so there's these different levels of security you have to get past. I had on a Superman spandex shirt that kind of like the material you made your spandex pants out of. And the first wave of security said, can I help you? I said, yeah, I'm here to meet Tony Braxton. We missed our bus on our way in. We're the security. I got to get backstage. And I was bigger than everybody. I was I was actually, this is in 1996, 97, somewhere in that range. So I was already a pro. And the guy let me through. And I got through the third one, and I got all the way to her dressing room door, and I was standing outside the door. And the girl, now I dealt with men, and they just moved out of my way. Now there's a woman, and my buddy Patrick was just going, holy crap, what are we going to say? So we'll figure it out. The girl said, can I help you? I said, I'm here to meet with Tony Braxton. My story changed from being security to I'm here to meet Tony Braxton from Muscle and Fitness. I'm a professional bodybuilder. And they sent me down here to try to see if Tony wants to do something with Muscle and Fitness or Flex magazine, because she was in one of the magazines that I had seen before. Wow. I felt that might resonate. That might resonate with her. She came outside and stuck her head out and saw me and Pat, who was another bodybuilder. Yeah. And then there was 12 girls surrounding us, all of her dancers. Yeah. They were looking at us like we were fresh meat. And they were just fawning all over our physique. And then they invited us in. And now it's me, Tony Braxton, the lady that was standing outside, two of her girls, and one guy, and Patrick. And you could hear, John, a pin drop. And she sat down and said, how can I help you guys?
Wow.
Now I'm looking at it going, holy shit. I'm thinking in my head, 10 minutes ago, I was at the top of the arena, and now I'm in her room. So I'm quick on my feet. I said, I'm here on behalf of Joe Weider. I'm one of his top bodybuilders. I'm one of the few black bodybuilders that's on the covers of the magazines. He's looking for another girl that would complement my look. I thought it might be good because I know that you're into fitness. I saw an article on you on Women's Flex magazine, and they sent me here to see if I could actually get you to join us with maybe a photo shoot or a cover or a layout. Give that information to this girl. Can I take she took a pic. I don't walk around with a camera.
Right.
She took a picture of me and her that I never saw. And I literally left that dressing room thinking, there's nothing I can do. Nothing I cannot do. I came from the top of the rafters. I was nobody from nowhere, and I'm sitting in there having this conversation. The only thing I regretted is that I didn't get a photograph of it. Now, prior to that incident, we had an episode back in 1984 at the Prince concert.
Wait, before you tell the Prince concert, you just made me think of, I went to go see Sade. And so I don't remember who it was. Some girl invited me, right? And I told her, said, listen, I'll go to the concert, but I need some nice front row seats, or I'm not going. I'm not sitting in the rafters. I'm telling you right now, I'm gonna be pissed off. No, we have good seats. Man, I get there. I think it was like the amphitheater. We're way in the back. I go, look, this is a problem, right? I can't sit back here. So next thing I know, I said, let's go. I start migrating down to the front. I walk through all the security. I get to the front row. This big guy comes up to me. He goes, can I help you? I go, yeah. I said, no. He came up and says, are you her bodyguard? Sade's bodyguard? I go, yeah, because I was 6'2", 250 on swole, 22-inch arm. Yeah. He figured that got to be the bodyguard. I go, yeah, I'm her bodyguard. He says, okay, come on. Here, you guys can sit right here. Sat in the front row for the whole concert. Just a quick story. So that's awesome. That Prince, that was funny. We went there.
Well, the thing, my point was is that bodybuilding and that discipline that I was getting from you as a teenager, I carried that into my adulthood because in the 90s it was all me. Like you were doing your thing, you had moved on. I was in the throes of trying to become Mr. Olympia. But those little nuggets about what you can't do, I didn't think I could do 100 leg extensions. I never thought I could do bent over rows with a 100-pound dumbbell. I never believed that I could superset between leg presses and squat. All of these things, those barriers, we just kept achieving things that I didn't think I can do because you were putting those obstacles in front of me. As an adult, it just continued to cement in my mind that there's certain things that, look, I'm not afraid of losing. I'm not afraid of somebody saying no. But in my mind, if I think I can do it, I can do it. Somebody's going to do it. Somebody's got to be first. Somebody's got to be brave enough. Following you, listening to you, kind of watching what you were doing, all of those nuggets helped me throughout my entire career. So I'm not surprised that your sons went to these major universities. I'm not surprised that they've achieved the level of success because they live with you 24 hours a day. I didn't. But the little bit that I was getting, I used and I applied in ways that you don't even know. even today.
So let's go to the Prince concert. Me, you, Bill Gill. Who else was with
Bill
me?
Gill.
Was me?
I think it was. I think Eric went. Eric was there.
Eric.
He was.
So
He had his thing all dressed up like Prince.
yeah, so we're all bodybuilders, and your memory is probably better than mine. How do you remember it going down?
I remember we went there. We didn't have tickets to go in.
Didn't have tickets.
And we just kind of we came up as a pack. I think there was four of us or maybe five.
And I kept saying, "Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it." You're like,
yeah, and I was saying, "There's no way."
I go, "Don't worry."
This is in 1984, so I'm like, "There's no way we're getting into
John,
this place."
what are we gonna do? I said, just follow me. Don't say anything, right? So we knock on this door, and the guy comes out. I said, "Look, we're here with what I say? We're bodyguards for Prince or something."
No, you said we were I thought you said we were bodyguards for Michael Jackson.
I said Michael Jackson to another guy. So to the first guy,
yeah, okay.
I think I might have said Michael Jackson. I was bodyguard for somebody.
Yeah.
And they let us in. We're all looking at each other. You're like, holy crap. So we're walking, we're following this guy. Next thing you know, we're backstage, right? And I'm thinking, oh shit. And there's a door. He goes, wait here. And you go, John, what are you going to do if Michael Jackson or Prince walk through that door? I said, I don't know. I'll figure that out when that happens. But right now we're in a concert. Yeah. So let's just figure this thing out. And the guy opens the door. He looks at me. He goes, who'd you say you're with? I said, Michael Jackson. He's not in there? He goes, no, well, he's somewhere. He goes, look, it was really loud. Wait here. Wait right here. I said, okay, we'll wait here. But he has to be somewhere around here. I said, wait here. Came back. You know what? He's not here yet. I said, so, well, we're told to wait here, and I don't want to get in trouble. Because I'll tell you what. Let me bring you to the front of the stage. And they walked us to the front of the stage. Wait right here. Music was super loud. Yeah. I go, all right, I got you. We're good. We're good. And next you know, we had a front row at the Prince concert.
Yeah.
For free.
Yeah. So that was in '84. I replicated that in '96, and I channeled that entire experience. So those little nuggets, man.
How to maneuver.
They carry over into other areas for sure. It was so funny.
Oh man!
I felt like nothing's impossible after that.
Oh man, we used to laugh our asses off. I know you thought I was funny. I don't know why, but you thought I was funny.
For me, guy. I was a student of John Brown because you were like the big brother I didn't have, but you were also the guy that was like, you wanted to see it all the way through. I always said in all of my interviews, Mike Tyson. Without Customato, there is no Mike Tyson. You have criminal Mike Tyson probably locked up in jail. But Customato saw some things in Mike Tyson that Mike didn't see. And he started instilling in Mike a work ethic and a belief that if he just does the work, the process will take care of itself. And so can you imagine Mike at 15, he's in trouble, he's in a wayward youth camp for troubled kids, and then some person says, look, you're going to be the champion of the world one day. You come over here and you work with these guys and shows them the ropes and feeds them the food and tells them the stories and shows them the videos and shows them. That 15-year-old at 20 years old became the heavyweight champion of the world. He was the same age as me. So while that was happening to Mike Tyson, I had you. I had your roommate Eric. I had people in the gym watching me going through the process, but hearing the words, you could win the Nationals. You could be Teenage California. You could be in the Mr. Olympia. You were saying things to me that I couldn't wrap my head around, but I knew that it wouldn't rub off. And the only way that those things you were telling me was going to happen is if I just did the work. So all I could do was copy you. All I could do was kind of hear what you were saying and then apply it, even in your absence, because you would train me so hard in the ground that I would quit. As soon as you got on a plane and left, I would take that. What you just did to me, I would do that to somebody else in the gym. I'm John Brown for the day. What you were doing to me, I was doing to Jimmy Diaz. What you were doing to me, I was doing it to David Diaz. I was killing people. I was the guys that were my age or close to it. I was killing them, but because you showed me the next gear, you would take me to the next level, and they didn't know. They didn't know that next gear. So very few bodybuilders will walk in the gym and realize that when we're going to do legs today, but we're going to start off with 50 repetitions on leg extensions, and then we're going to go over and squat and then we're going to come over and superset with leg press, and then we're going to do hamstrings.
We did 100 reps.
Yeah, 100 reps. They weren't doing that.
No.
Nobody was doing that. So as soon as you would leave after you killed me, when you were gone, I would do that to other guys that were unfamiliar with that. And my victory, my small little victory, would empower my belief that when you came home, I'm going to step up my game to show you that I'm doing it.
So let me ask you a question. What drove you? Because I want these guys to understand. You have bodybuilders, you have football players, you have basketball players, but there's some things that are constant and some things that are consistent. For an example, how you had no coaches, I was kind of like your coach, but
yeah, but I was a teenager.
But how much time did you dedicate to bodybuilding? Would you say you're in a 24-hour day? How many hours was spent either training or thinking about it, or eating or sleeping to better your body?
So I think you know me, John. I dig deep into something. I get involved. I knew a bodybuilder by their forearm. I didn't have to see the rest of their body.
Mm-hmm.
I studied the magazines. I could see a deltoid and say, that's Scott Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
I could see a calf and say, that's Jeff King.
Mm-hmm.
I could see a bicep and say, that's Albert Beckles.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to see the rest of the physique.
Mm-hmm.
I was the same way as a football player. I knew what the coaches' salaries were. Coaches' salaries. I knew what university the player came out of to make it into the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
My whole dream was to be a football player. And when that shifted to being a bodybuilder, I'm like a Rain Man. I was like, I wanted to know everything about bodybuilding.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I'm looking at the pictures of when I was looking at the pictures of the bodybuilders, I wanted to know who the photographer was. When I read an article, I wanted to know who the author of the article is, who the interviewer is. Mm-hmm. And as fate would have it, I didn't have a plan B. When my football career was over on crutches watching, that was it. I had one extra shot the following year when they asked me to play in the Orange County All-Star North-South All-Star game. Mm-hmm. But it happened to be the same weekend as the Teenage America in Detroit, Michigan in 1984. Ooh. I chose to go for the Teenage Mr. America contest in Detroit, but it was an easy decision because I had already won a few bodybuilding shows. But that was my last opportunity to put the helmet on and play football. And when I walked away from the Orange County North-South game, which was being played at the Anaheim Stadium, which is my dream. I just wanted to play at the Anaheim. I wanted to play at the Big A. That was like, I could die after that. I went to Detroit. I got second place. But I was only 18 years old, so I knew I had another year to go back. But having no plan B, I needed to know everything about professional bodybuilding.
The key. You had no plan B. Now, I know a lot of parents are going to listen to this, and that's like my philosophy. I don't have plan B. I got plan A and plan A and plan A. That's all I know. So for those of you who have kids out there, what he's talking about is dedication. To dedicate yourself completely to something, to want it, to want that more than breathing itself. If you don't want that, you're not going to make it. You got to teach your kids that. Parents, you cannot expect your kids to be like Shawn, because Shawn is the exception. He's not the rule. So in most cases, parents have to instill what he's talking about into their kids, because most kids are not born with that. He was born with that. I don't think your mom and dad woke you up or took you to the gym or told you what to do. You did it on your own, right?
Yeah, my parents never... My dad came a couple of times to watch me lift weights, but he wasn't a bodybuilder. He couldn't give me advice. My mom wasn't a cook. She didn't understand why I'd take the skin off the chicken breast and throw it away, why I'd split the egg in half and throw away the yolks. She didn't understand why I would eat steak, chicken, with no seasoning, no flavoring. So having parents that didn't understand what I was doing gave me more pride that what I'm doing for myself. I'm the artist. Mm-hmm. As I became a professional bodybuilder, there's a real opportunity there for injury. So I didn't insulate myself that, if I got injured, my career is over. What will I do next? I always knew that if something happened, I know the sport of bodybuilding well enough as a student that I could navigate myself in the industry to create another life for myself. You don't get a diploma from bodybuilding. So here I am, 23 years in retirement. I haven't stepped on a bodybuilding stage since 2001, but I still live solely off of my wisdom and knowledge in marketing and promoting bodybuilding. So I got my MBA in bodybuilding because I became a promoter. I put on muscle camps around the world, in Chile, South Africa, in Ireland, in Las Vegas, in Miami, in California. I've done them all around the world, Australia. I MC bodybuilding shows. Why? Because it doesn't take a lot to be able to rattle off a few names and categories. I know how a bodybuilding show is supposed to be run. I know the flow. I know the ebbs and flows of it. You have to fill in some time. You have to be able to pronounce and enunciate the names correctly. You have to know the difference in when the men come on and the women come on, introduce the judges, acknowledge your sponsors. For me, that's another avenue of income that supports my lifestyle. And I MC shows, John, in China. I have a show coming up in Switzerland. I'm the master of ceremonies. I've been all over the world MCing and hosting shows. That's another form of revenue.
Yes.
I have my show in Hawaii where I bring in sponsors. I bring in athletes.
And when is your show in Hawaii? Do you have a date for the next one?
Yeah, this year it's November the 16th.
Okay.
In Honolulu. But I say all that to say this. My bodybuilding, I was all in. There was no plan B. But along the way, I'm intelligent enough to know that nothing lasts forever. It's like an actor. If you're an actor for the camera, maybe your shelf life for being in front of the camera is only so long. But there's a reason why Clint Eastwood is still putting out work at 92 years old. Because he knows how to make a movie. Ron Howard, who started out as Opie on television as a child actor, who wound up on Happy Days, he's still putting out movies. Some of the best movies we've seen Ron Howard has made because they got behind the camera. I got into the production side and diversified and used my mind instead of just my body to continue having the satisfaction of the sweat equity I put into bodybuilding. But when I was bodybuilding, you're 100% right. That's all I was doing. I didn't have friends that were bodybuilders. I had competitors that were bodybuilders, but I didn't have friends that were calling me, reminding me to eat, reminding me to train, trying to motivate me when I didn't want to go. I had to do the work.
That's what I tell people, like with my kids and people who have kids, and they want their kids to go to Major League Baseball, NFL, or whatever it may be. You know, again, I was self-motivated. Shawn was self-motivated, but you guys got to understand something. That is the exception, not the rule. Don't get it twisted, because I hear a lot of parents looking at me saying, John, look at my son. Can you tell my son who's 8 years old, can you tell him how much he should be working out, how dedicated he should be, because he's lazy, he's playing video games. Hey, he's playing video games because you allow him to play those games. You're the father. Take that stuff away and learn how to instill discipline in your child. For me, the bodybuilding discipline taught me how to do it with my kids. Bodybuilding was the best thing I ever done because it's a single sport, it's not a team sport, and I can instill those same work ethics into my kids to teach them how to work, how to train, how to sleep, how much work to put in. What does it look like, real work? So, you know, let me ask you a question. Do you have you did a lot of competitions. What's your most memorable competitions, one or two or three that you were in, that you go, man, you know what? I remember this, and it was the best time I ever had.
Yeah, the 1987 NPC National overall victory I had in Atlantic City. I was 21 years old. I was coming off of winning the Mr. California only 5 months earlier. And when I won the Mr. California, it reminded me that Roy Liedlemeyer had won the Mr. California and that Bob Paris had won the Mr. California. And that Mr. California would be a front runner for the national title. Because you automatically, they're going to be looking for you. They don't have to search the stage. If Mr. California's there, he's going to be one of the guys that's going to be front runner. Yeah. But I won that show, John, and at that time, I wasn't doing cardio. At that time, I wasn't eating fish. And at that time, I was going more and more to Gold's Gym in Venice Beach. Now, you taught me the work ethic of bodybuilding, the mechanics of eat, sleeping, and training, calorie consumption, not quitting, and just going after it. But what you didn't have the knowledge of was the nutrition side, because you were a genetic freak. You could eat hamburgers and French fries and you'd get in shape. I couldn't. But by going to Venice Beach, I would learn from these other bodybuilders that I needed to do cardio to burn subcutaneous fat. I needed to cut back on the red meat and eat fish so I can lean out a little bit more. I learned that I needed to do more isometric posing to the degree that I was actually working up a lather, a sweat, and control my muscles. And so from May of 1987 till October of 1987, along with tanning, Chris Dickerson told me, even though we're the same complexion, I need to get out in the sun at least a month before the show, and lay in the sun for an hour and just dry out. Between May and October, I was a totally transformed bodybuilder. I lost about 2.5 pounds. I made weight at 197.25 pounds, but by the time I stepped on stage, I was 202. And I saw things on my body at that stage that I'd never seen before. I really came of age, but I was introduced, number one, by Lyle Alzado, who became an Oakland Raider, and I was a big Oakland Raider fan. Mike Katz introduced me, and I remember him from the movie Pumping Iron. And Victor Richards was there. He didn't have a hotel room. I let him stay in my room the Friday night of prejudging, and you know, that was his form of support. I got on the plane. I went to New Jersey by myself for this national title.
Did Victor compete?
So Victor just happened to be there, and I was actually signing. I brought pictures with me to sign from winning the Mr. California, and in between the prejudging, which was Friday, and the finals, which was Saturday, I was signing autographs of my 8x10. And I ran into a guy who started the company called ProTan, Stacy Kaufman, the tanning agent. So these things were all kind of happening at once. And then I came out to I'm Telling You I'm Not Going by Jennifer Holliday. And remember, the posing limit was 90 seconds. Every bodybuilder had 90 seconds to perform. If you go to YouTube and type in Shawn Ray 1987 national champion, the posing routine, John, and the last thing I told the guy before I walked out, I got this from you. I said, don't turn my music off until I'm walking off the stage back to you. Because they had a tendency to fade the music out at the end. And they'd be there with a stopwatch, 90 seconds. My posing routine was 3 minutes and 43 seconds. Now, that's nothing compared to the amount of time that you perform. But in the NPC, where the regulation time is 90 seconds.
And they got to watch a stopwatch.
3 minutes and 43 seconds is a lifetime on that stage. And I posed from the beginning of that song to the end, and I got a standing ovation. And I wound up beating Phil Hill, who was the biggest bodybuilder next to you that I had met on stage. And that I remember that day like it was yesterday, because that day after the prejudging, everyone told me that I'm in the hunt. But they hadn't seen me stand next to Phil Hill in the heavyweight division. They said, you got to get past this guy. He's so big, but you're so much more complete. I went out on the boardwalk Saturday morning, and Mike Tyson was on the boardwalk. He had a fight that week, the following weekend, against Terrell Biggs, I think it was. Terrell Biggs. And he was at a cookie. I was walking by. He was in the cookie store. He came out eating a cookie. And I freaked out, because that was, in my mind, I was channeling Mike Tyson my whole career since I became a bodybuilder. And there he was. He's maybe 5'10". He didn't look that tall. And I told him, I said, we have a bodybuilding show here. He said, I'm fighting there next weekend. Somehow or another, I just channeled all of the things that I learned in bodybuilding, and then the whole posing information that I absorbed from your career, and everything was in synchronicity. And I won that overall title. Mike Tyson knocked out Terrell Biggs like in 2 or 3 rounds that following weekend. And that's where I arrived. I became a professional bodybuilder. I signed a contract with Joe Weider. I moved into my first apartment. I wound up on the cover of Flex magazine, and my career took off from there.
So now the bodybuilding has changed over the years. Like, what are the big changes that you've seen, and where do you think it's going?
Well, you don't have the depth of field like we talked about with the early legends in the 70s. Now you have 2 or 3 guys that are good, not great. You have 2 or 3 guys that are good, and then you have the rest. When I compare the eras, we had guys that were great, and the guys that were good, they were able to make a living.
Are they able to make a living now?
Not if you're if you're not in the top
So
10.
let's
It's
break it
hard to
down.
make it.
Back in the day, when you were competing, was it the top 10 guys making a living, top 15 guys, and what do you say it is
The top
today?
20.
So top 20 were making
It's probably the
was
top 20.
top 20 were making a
Yeah.
living. Now it's only what, top 10?
Yeah. Yeah, I might even drop down to maybe the top 6.
Wow.
It's tough. You know why? Back then we had Joe Weider who would give a contract to 25 athletes, and he locked you up with supplements and with publications and with appearances.
And how much were those
Those are gone.
contracts back then? Roughly,
I mean,
average
a lot. They weren't a lot, but they were, $50,000 back in the '90s
was a lot.
was a lot of money. I mean,
So remember when I was competing, no contracts, no money from nobody.
right?
All those guys, they weren't making jack. So I had an option. I had an option to stay here or to go to the Mr. World in Paris. I went to the Mr. World in
Right.
Paris, and in my opinion, that was the best thing I ever did, because when I went to that Mr. World contest, as soon as I got off stage, my life changed. I had so many people from so many countries all around me wanted to do shows, seminars,
Yeah.
guest posing, whatever they wanted. Different T-shirt manufacturer, supplement companies wanted to pay me money to, say that I take their products. It was insane, and nobody else was making money. But I made one mistake. I bought a brand new convertible 450 Mercedes SL and bought it home from Germany. I should have never done that, because I was blackballed when I went to Europe. And I bought that car, and I was the only guy making money. All these guys came out, Mr. California, I never forget it, at Santa Monica Civic Auditorium. I was sitting on the hood, me and my boy Donnie Wiggins. All these haters, all these bodybuilders came up to me. John, how you doing, man? I said, I'm doing good. How's Europe? I said, it's all right. It's not that good. But the problem was, I'm saying it's not that good. I'm sitting on this car, and they're thinking, wait a minute, man.
Yeah.
Something's wrong. Man, and
Yeah.
next thing I know, they all flooded to Europe. But when I was there, I tell you something. I would never leave my house unless I had already scheduled at least $25,000 to $30,000 worth of shows. I would never leave.
Yeah.
And I would go there,
And it was a cap.
take that money, bring it home. I would do that twice a year. So I was easily making $60,000, $70,000 a year back then.
Yeah. And that went a long ways. But again, it's the evolution of bodybuilding. So you opened a gateway, other people followed suit, and they started going there. But then Joe Weider started giving out contracts. And then later on, Vince McMahon came along and started giving out contracts. So opportunities started popping up, because now you have new brands. You have Metrics coming in. You have, who was the company out of Canada? Cybergenics was coming in. You had, there's just a bunch of different brands that popped up, and they were sponsoring athletes. So people were finding their way. We had Max Muscle giving out clothing sponsorship. There's all these different. I was sponsored by Gold's Gym. I had my own glove. I was sponsored by Serenet Gloves. I was sponsored by different people that wanted me to wear their clothes. Pro Fitness USA.
I forgot about those
Germany.
guys, yeah.
Yeah, and so we had all these opportunities. Those opportunities are not there anymore. Now you got to make your opportunities. Some chosen few, based on their celebrity social media following, are able to get some nickels and dime. But the prize money has gone up.
What is the
The
Mr.
Olympic
Olympia
prize
now?
money, it's up to $400,000 if you win. But again, it's winner take all.
That's first place. Winner take all.
Second gets 200. First is 400. Second's 200. Third is 100. Then I think it goes 75 and 50. It's not bad, but it's all reflective of the cost of living. Listen, the house I bought in Chino Hills back in 1992, Mr. Olympia prize money at the time was $60,000. That house was $320,000. Perspective, 1992. Today, that house is $1.3 million. So the Olympia went from $60,000 in 1990 to $400,000. You still have to pay taxes on it. It's still a business. You can't just retire on that kind of money. I don't think you can be in this sport for the money. I got into bodybuilding because I controlled my own destiny. I'm an independent thinker. I'm an independent contractor. I'm an artist.
Wow.
I'm an artist the same way you were an
Wow.
artist. I didn't want to work for the man. I didn't want to punch the clock. I wanted to do something that I enjoyed,
Wow.
something I'm passionate. So one contract is not enough to survive. So I had to do many different things. But all the things I do in bodybuilding, I enjoy. I enjoy emceeing shows. I enjoy being a representative spokesperson for a supplement company. I enjoy putting on my own competition. I enjoy creating things. And it's not work to me because it's what I know.
And that's why I told my sons, I go, look, and I'm telling parents, I was a bodybuilder. Don't get me wrong. I learned a lot from it. And most of what I've learned, I instilled in my kids. And it helped them at least 95% of the way through this thing that we went through. But I would never let them bodybuild. You just said it. It's not a sport that you can make a living at. So why would I tell my sons to bodybuild? That would be bad parenting. Why? No offense to bodybuilding. No offense to swimmers. No offense to guys who run track. Every now and then, one guy gets lucky and is a swimmer or a wrestler or runs track, and they can squeeze through the needle's eye, and Nike gives them some big contract. But in general, as a rule, it doesn't happen that way. So if I'm a parent, I'm making sure that I guide my kids in a sport that if they become world champion, they get handsomely paid for their hard work.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. At the end of the day, you got to let a kid be a kid. But the parent, like yourself, like Richard Williams with Venus and Serena's dad, Tiger Woods' dad,
Michael
Andre
Jackson's
Agassi's
dad.
family. If you can guide them, and it's something that they enjoy, you don't have to ride them because they enjoy it. Number one. But if you're gonna do it, like you said, you annihilate the competition. If you're gonna do it, go do it to win, and that will leave you the foundation of where they can go. I remember one of my best friends. You know, I mean, Doug Cable, who's my best man at my wedding. He said, you know, John's too hard on his boys. But you got to remember it's perspective, because you were hard on me as a bodybuilder, and if someone that didn't understand what it was, it would look like child abuse. But your boys didn't.
I don't think it was hard at all, though. Like you said.
No. Yeah. The perspective is his son was playing football because it was fun, and you were conditioning your boys that if you're going to play the game, you play it aggressively. You're not gonna get hurt, and you're playing to win. There's more joy in winning than losing. It doesn't matter if you're by yourself or if you do the same amount of work. Like you're there for the same amount of time. And do you want to just dress out and watch the game, or do you want to go out and dominate the game? My football jersey at my high school is retired for one reason, because by the time I got there as a freshman, I already knew I wanted to break records, right? So I went to high school knowing I wanted to break records and I wanted to go to the next level. I didn't go there because I wanted to have fun. And that wasn't something someone had to instill in me. It was just something I wanted to do. By the time I got to where I wanted to go as a football player, my records are still there. My jersey's retired. I'm in the Football Hall of Fame. I didn't become a professional football player, but I look back with gratitude because I went there on a mission to go there and dominate like you were talking about. I hadn't even met you yet. I took all of that mindset and I transferred it to bodybuilding, and I wound up in the Bodybuilding Hall of Fame. I wound up getting number 2 in the world twice. I wound up beating guys much bigger. I wound up having a successful Hall of Fame career for one reason. In my mind, I was training to be the best. I was trying to dominate. And so you have to take yourself to a place that others aren't willing to go. Yeah. You got to go to a place where you don't even think you can go. And while that looks like abuse as a kid, it sets you up as a man in other aspects of your life.
Yeah, that's not abuse. That's called good parenting. I mean, I wasn't beating my kids, yelling at them, using profanity. It was none of that. It was just, hey, you guys ready? It's time to go to the gym. And since we've been doing it since they were like 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old, it was normal to them. they didn't think about it like it was such hard work or so different. Is what they did every day, and it paid off.
Well, I've always said this, John. You are a reflection of the company you keep.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still talking to you now at 58 years old, and I met you when I was
Mm-hmm.
17. I've never asked you for anything. I've never tried to take advantage of any of your friendship with me. I had the key to your condo when you were in Europe. I was in high school. I used to eat at your house when you were gone. I used to pick up your mail. I used to have your phone line was at my house. I used to hear messages coming for you. You were the guy that I wanted to be as a kid. And here I am at 58 years old, and the same tactics that you instilled in your sons, I was the dry run. I feel like I was the dry run because I know your friends that you came
You
up with,
know him,
and
yeah,
they were men. They're
yeah.
older. They're older than me. I was
He
a
was a
kid. I
test
was the dry
test
run.
subject.
I was the test subject. But look at the fruit that
Oh,
it
that's funny.
bore, because it's I'm not that football player that you wanted to have, but I became
Mm.
that bodybuilder that you thought I could be. And that says a lot, because you didn't do that. You planted the seeds. I did the
Yeah.
rest. Like throughout my entire Olympia preparation, you oversaw a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Every once in a while, I call you in to look
Mm-hmm.
at me, but I did
You
the
did the
work.
work.
So I take credit for that. But I could have done the work if the foundation wasn't there, the
Mm-hmm.
fundamentals, the mindset, the idea that I have to annihilate the competition, the idea that I have to do a certain type of posing and understand why I'm posing.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many bodybuilders out there on the Olympia stage. They don't even know what a front double bicep is supposed to look like. How they became pros, I don't know. But I understand you actually had names for your
Yes.
poses,
Because
and that
Daryl
has meaning.
Bronkins was a basketball guy, Chocolate Thunder. He was naming all those dunks. I go, man, you know what? Since
Yeah,
he's naming the dunks, I'm gonna name my posing. So I just did that, and
yeah.
I helped not a lot, but I trained almost every. Well, let me think. I think every person I touched became a world champion. So, like you said, you were the first guy I trained. Second behind you was, I think, Doyle Washington, if I'm not mistaken. And
Mm-hmm.
Doyle became Mr. Did he win Mr. America?
He won the Teen America before me, before I got there.
Teenage Mr. America before. Oh, okay, so I did. So was it Doyle before you?
Dora was the one that you
Oh,
told me
so I
about.
did
Yeah,
Doyle before you, then Vince
yeah,
Taylor, you know, and
yeah.
then the Melvin, no, Cynthia
Melvin
Hill,
Anthony.
and then Melvin Anthony. All these guys became world champions. Then
Yeah,
I
yeah.
got three boys. I said, okay, let me lay my hands on them and show them how to do it. So there's a method. There's a method to this thing. So when people come into Black Coffee to listen to what I got to say, there's a method to it. And you may not agree with it, but like I always say, you got two choices in life. One, listen to you. Two, listen to me. And sometimes I'm just going to explain to you, try to help you and guide you through this crazy world, because it's not easy, the world of sports. And a lot of you who's never done it, so Sean's been to the mountaintop, he can take another kid there because he knows the direction. If you
Yeah.
don't know the direction,
And I have.
if you don't know the way, how can you tell a person how to get there? So if you got a guy trying to teach you or teach your son or your daughter how to get to the mountaintop, I would check his resume. If he hasn't been there, how does he know the way?
Yeah, yeah. Well, again, you're in the same company of Richard Williams and Tiger Woods, because you're not. It's not lip service. You have the proof. You have the proof
Mm-hmm.
in me before you even had your boys, that you can't. There's no
No,
shortcuts. You can't fake
no.
bodybuilding, man. Look, bodybuilding is not for everyone, but if you
Ooh,
do it, you can't
wow,
fake it. And with football, with the
wow.
times, you can't fake out a stopwatch. That you're either running a 4.4 or you're not. You're either jumping a certain vertical or you're not. You're able to catch the ball or you're not. You're able to sustain the hits or you're not. The only difference is that injury can stop you in
Mm-hmm.
your tracks. Now, there's a lot of guys with great potential where injury will
Mm-hmm.
stop you. this is where all of those other tools, all the other mechanisms that bodybuilding plants in you, training with weights, eating, the routine, the discipline, the regimen, all of those things now have to kick in as a promoter, as a father, as a world traveler. All the ingenuity that I've learned, I've got to apply those things in other aspects of my life to bear fruit, right? So I'm no longer the bodybuilder that you can look at for my physique and pay me money to come and perform. I can't compete for prize money. All of that stuff physically is gone. Now I have to use the mental things, the seeds that were planted, the discipline I had to go through, the pain and the suffering, the sacrifice. I've got to take those things and now apply that to business, marketing, promotions, and there is life after bodybuilding the same way
question.
again. There's going to be life after sport.
I have another question. So when you were competing, did you have girlfriends, or were you pretty selfish and just dedicated yourself to bodybuilding? Or what were you doing?
I remember it well because I was a kid, and you put it in my head that women were kryptonite, and that would be the only thing that could stop me from getting there. And there's some perspective on it because you said this, and I know you don't remember, but you said there's a time and a season, and it's crazy what you remember the further away you get from hearing it the first time. You said there's a time and a season, and I had to let that marinate because almost like going to military. You have to leave your family, you have to leave your kids, you have to leave your friends, and all of their activities. You literally leave with a little backpack of maybe some shoes and some clothes because the military provides everything else. And you can be gone for 4 years. Yeah, you get to come back and forth, but in the military, that's not where you go to formulate relationships. That's not where you go to fall in love. It's not where you go to start a family. The military, you're there on a mission. And if that mission isn't there at that camp, they're going to deploy you to someplace where the mission takes place. The mindset for me was as it was time to get ready for a show, there's a time. That's the time. I'm getting ready for a show. There's nothing else that really matters right now except that date that's way off in the future, and I got to get ready for that. So I'm not looking for love when I'm getting ready for that date. I'm on a mission. I got to take the test. Then, once I've accomplished that, then there's a season. I have a very short season, kind of like off season, to enjoy the fruit of my labor. But there's going to come that time again that I've got to get ready. So I had friendships, I had relationships, but when it came time for me to do the work, I don't care where I was at, my lot in life, I don't care who I was with, I don't care what it looked like. I put that on pause, and it was time for me to go get ready for the season. I didn't have love while I was bodybuilding. I didn't have the ability to sustain both because I was in love with the idea that I had to finish the mission. And when I'm getting ready for a show, I'm deployed. I'm not available. I'm doing the things that are necessary for victory. And if I fall short, I can't blame myself because my
video games.
Video games was a mind killer for me, and they were there. They existed. I felt like they took up too much of my time. I was studying the competition. I was reading books because I didn't want to hear the noise of the television. I didn't want to take in the commercials, which they entice you with all the food and the fantasy of vacation. I listened to classical music when I was home to keep my blood pressure low. I kept my house dark. I read a lot of books. I didn't have a lot of friends come over. I was isolated because I didn't want the distraction and the noise of going out on Friday night, of satisfying someone else's needs. The distraction in a relationship is so loud and so powerful because here's the compromise. Hey, girlfriend, I don't want you to be so big. I don't want you to eat so much. I want you to come visit my parents. I want you to go over here to this party. I wasn't living my life for someone else. I was on a mission to win this competition. And either you're for me or you're against me. So if it's not positive stuff coming in, I don't have time for it. I don't mind losing a relationship because there's a time for that.
That's what I'm trying to...
But this season right here, I'm getting ready for it. And that's how I remained in the top 12 for 12, top 5 for 12 consecutive seasons. It's a record, John. It stands today. I've been removed 23 years. There hasn't been another bodybuilder before. There hasn't been another bodybuilder after me that remained in the top 5 for 12 consecutive years. And it was because of the discipline of the
And
mission.
this is good information
I
for
wasn't
parents. Not, I'm
I
sorry to
wasn't doing
interrupt you
it for
there.
them.
This information is good for parents. I can't stress that. Is, you can't just tell your son or your daughter, hey, listen to these guys. See, that's what I'm trying to tell you. It doesn't work like that. We're the exception. The rule, most kids gonna want to do video game. It's up to you as a parent to say, no, guess what? You're not getting a cell phone until you're 16. I don't care what everyone else says. You're not playing video games. You're doing this. Your child will do what you tell them if you instill that in them early. Don't wait until they're 8 years old or 7. Start at 4 and 5. You got to understand these things. So the stuff you're hearing, please, you have to be strict, not dogmatic and violent with the kid. It just becomes his lifestyle. If a child reads every night before they go to bed, that's what they do in their household, he'll grow up and he'll be a man or a woman doing the same thing. That's what they were taught. So teach your kids the right stuff, please.
Well, to drive the point home, and I wasn't a kid. I was 17 years old. You gave me some advice, and you actually repeated it in a conversation where they asked you a question about was I like a good student or something like that, and you said that you can be rest assured that I'm going to do the work. And one of the things you told me was eat, sleep, train, and say your prayers and go to church or something like that.
Go to church on Sundays.
So along that line,
let me tell the story. Better than come from me. So,
go ahead.
I told him what to do, how to train Monday through Friday through Saturday, what we did. He asked me, what do you do on Sundays? I said, you go to church. Every Sunday, I couldn't find Shawn. I go, where the hell is he? I go, man, after about 6 Sundays, I go, man, I gotta ask this guy, Shawn, where the hell are you on Sunday? You told me to go to church. He was in church. And I was just, saying as, just joking around, but the guy actually went to church.
But here's the thing. I thought for me, doing what you did, doing what you told me to do was going to get me there in the right way, faster, whatever. I thought that was part of the process. I needed that spirituality, that connection, so I can conquer the weights for another week and get me to the next week.
Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't go to church. Don't get me wrong. But I just
no. But the point is this: what you feed your kids, the information that you're giving them, if they want it, they'll listen. I wanted it. I wanted to be like you. I wanted to be the guy in the Mercedes. I wanted to be the guy on the magazine covers. I wanted the trophy. So in my mind, I need to know what it is you're doing, right? So you told me to go to church, so I thought that's part of the process. If I saw you doing video games, I probably would have been playing video games. But we know it's a dead-end street. And I didn't. You know what I saw you doing as a 17-year-old and you being older than me? I saw you sitting there talking to people in foreign countries about business. I saw you making clothing for women. I saw you working up catalogs. I saw you have guests come in from France speaking a different language, training partners coming in and out. I saw you doing the business of bodybuilding, and I was watching. I was a student. I said, this is what it's like. I have a front row seat to the guy that's living the life I want. And for me, I absorbed it all. I didn't see you falling in love with people. I saw you have friends. I saw you have relationships. But I saw the priority was your food and your training and your sleep. I would come to your house at 2:00 and you were asleep.
I slept 12 hours a day.
I started to take
12 hours a day. I slept minimum.
Yeah. I didn't realize how important a power nap is. I put aluminum foil on my windows so the sun couldn't penetrate it in the afternoon, and I could make my room dark, and I put fans in there, and I had a black light. The black light gave it a little bit of color. It gave me a little bit of ambiance. But I was isolating myself as a teenager just so I can get a power nap so I can go back and do my training in the afternoon.
You grow in your sleep.
But I mean, I think, again, it comes back to what you teach people and then their willingness to want to get there. I wanted to get there, so I listened.
And one more thing. what about before we wrap this up here? Because, I'm still here on this earth, and I hear Melvin giving me credit, you giving me credit on posing and stuff. Vince Taylor telling people, John Brown talking about the pose. But I don't know why these podcasters or these writers don't contact me and go, let's talk to John. If he's the guy who started this whole thing, let's hear what he has to say. So what do you talk about posing, what I taught you and how to pose and all this stuff.
Well, I mean, I learned very early on, and I was fascinated by watching it because you were the first guy I actually saw do it to the degree that I would pay attention. I hadn't been to a bodybuilding show before I met you guys, you and your roommate. So going to my first show, I was actually in it. Before I got to my show, it seemed like the most important aspect of the show was the posing. I learned early, that, number one, you have an art background. So I learned the art of bodybuilding in the context that it really is just the signature on the painting. If I was a painter, I paint the picture. The last thing you put on the painting is the signature. Well, all the work is done as a bodybuilder in the gym. Nobody's watching me lift weights. But the one thing that they're going to remember is what I present on stage. And so I learned early on from you guys that to capture the audience, to get their attention, not only do you have to set yourself apart, but you have to do it on a different level. So all that stuff that was happening in the gym was fine and dandy, but if I couldn't show it and convey it in a way that was in synchronicity to the music, that had emotion and had feeling. These are words that you don't hear today. That had emotion, had feeling, had a beginning and a middle and an end, that told a story, that sucked the people in to listen to the music and lose their self in your routine, then there's no reason to be there. And once you've seen a bodybuilder go on stage to background noise, hit most muscular shots and front double biceps and walk around aimlessly, totally out of place, they look like they just phone it in and they don't care about what it is you're witnessing. I saw and I learned early on that the most important thing was not what the audience saw, but how they feel. And how you make them feel is what's going to be your bread and butter. You made a career out of guest posing at shows that you weren't even competing in. So I learned that if my posing routines would leave an impression on the audience, then maybe they'd leave an impression on the promoters. And from that, I've gone to China, Russia, Germany, Japan, Australia, South Africa, Egypt. I've been around the world and back, not competing, performing. Because I learned very early on that sometimes the most important thing is how you make the audience feel. And so that takes practice. And it was in me from the very beginning, and it came from one place. You were the source. The people today doing the podcast, they don't have the experience, they don't have the history, they don't know the source. There's many people out there that were very good posers in the 90s. I'd give Bob Harris some credit. I'd give Muhammad McCoway, Leela Barada, Vince Taylor. But it all comes from somewhere. When they were copying me, they were, in a sense, copying you. Because I learned from the source. Arnold Schwarzenegger wasn't doing this. Sergio Oliva wasn't doing this. So you have to be old enough to understand the history in order to be able to go back to the source. So I was blessed by being introduced by someone that understood the art of posing, and I cashed in at the bank with it. You've cashed in at the bank with it. Melvin, Richard Jones, several other bodybuilders have lived off the fruit of your labor by showing us the way. And I think because there's no magazines and because these new people are coming on and they don't have a historic reference, they don't mention you, the source, often enough so other people can learn.
So I take the credit. There's no problem. I don't mind blowing. I don't mind. I appreciate that, but I don't mind blowing my own horn because if you don't blow your own horn, they won't know you in the band. So I ain't got no problem with that.
Right.
You know? So how does people? How can they find you? If someone wanted to get in touch with you, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, I mean, in today's society, like Instagram, Shawn Ray IFBB Pro. I'm on X. I'm on Threads. I don't do YouTube very often, but I'm at all the main bodybuilding shows. I'll be at the Olympia. Of course, I'll be in Hawaii November 16th. I'll be at the Arnold Classic. You can do Google searches. I'm not hard to find. I'm hiding in broad daylight. And of course, I've got my new training site, which is called buildwithpros.com. And I'm spilling all my knowledge and my information I've learned throughout the years, sharing advice on trying to help you guys get to where you want to go in the bodybuilding and fitness industry.
Okay, cool. So, again, thank you for joining us here at Black Coffee. That's Shawn Ray, one of the world-renowned bodybuilders who's been all over the world. And we're so delighted and happy that you joined us today. And we really appreciate you taking your time out in your day. And if anybody wants to be next on the Black Coffee podcast, they can contact me at Instagram at John Brown Black Coffee. So thank you very much, and we'll see you on the next round, my friend.